In a city like Heartland, Ohio, nothing ever seems to happen, until it does. A string of brutal murders, each one more shocking than the last, has thrown the community into chaos. At first, police thought the deaths might be connected to a drug war, a power struggle between rivals. A missing DEA agent, a couple of local enforcers, a mid-level player, and a crime boss all end up dead. But then something strange happens. A woman who isn't connected to the drug war, a civilian, is murdered. As the bodies pile up, the FBI is called in and rumors begin to swirl. Is this a serial killer on the loose, or something else entirely? Hi, I'm Sarah Blake, and you're listening to Justice in the Heartland, a show where we unpack a story of murder, fear, and an inept police force in the small town of Heartland, Ohio, a community torn apart as they struggle to find the lines between right and wrong. This is Episode 1, Echoes of a Broken Town. We hope you'll stick around as we attempt to find out who is committing these heinous crimes, as well as follow the police as they work to make an arrest and put a stop to the violence. In Heartland, a town once vibrant with the hum of industry, the air is thick with memories of better days. Once a flourishing hub for rubber and steel production, this community thrived on hard work and the promise of a brighter future. Families built their lives here, relying on the factories that line the streets, providing stability and a sense of pride. But as the demand for American-made products dwindled and factories closed their doors, Heartland fell into decline. Jobs vanished, and with them, the spirit of the town. Over time, the bustling streets grew quiet, and the factories that once symbolized hope became haunting reminders of lost opportunities. Today, the scars of economic collapse are painfully visible. Abandoned farms, skeletons of factories, and deserted lakeside cottages are all signs of the rough time this town is struggling through. In its place, poverty, addiction, and crime have taken root, reshaping the landscape and the lives of those who remain. Today, in Heartland, the air is thick with tension, a palpable fear that grips the community as rival gangs wage an unrelenting war over territory, power, and control. This isn't just a struggle, it's a battle for survival, a fight that spills into the streets, affecting every corner of our town. At the heart of this conflict lies Tony Rossi, a name that sends shivers down the spines of even the most hardened criminals. With his ruthless tactics and iron grip on the drug trade, he has turned Heartland into a battleground, drawing in local dealers and escalating the violence that plagues our streets. But to grasp the full scope of the chaos unfolding, we'll need to meet his enforcers, Dylan O'Hara and Brent McNally, those who carry out his orders and will on the streets. And then there's LaTasha Greene, Rossi's main competitor. A sharp and ambitious woman in a male-dominated world, LaTasha has been fighting for her place at the table as Rossi gains more ground. These four individuals, Rossi, O'Hara, McNally, and Greene, each play a crucial role in the unfolding drama of Heartland. Time and again, I've watched them fail to act when the chaos escalates. Calls to 911 often go unanswered, or when the police do show up, it's like they're merely going through the motions. Crime scenes are left unguarded, evidence mishandled, and leads squandered. It's as if they're afraid to step into the storm brewing on our streets, leaving residents to fend for themselves. As the violence escalates, their intertwined fates will illuminate the darker corners of our town. But this war isn't just about drugs. It's about families torn apart, lives shattered, and futures extinguished in an instant. As bodies pile up, the lines between right and wrong blur. It doesn't end there. You'd think the police force would be our first line of defense. But here in Heartland, it's a different story. The police force, once seen as protectors, has become more of a punchline than a safeguard. They're not just outmatched, they're often absent when it matters most. It's unfortunate, really, and lead to people getting hurt every day. Sometimes the ones responsible just walk free, and it makes you question if people out there are fed up with waiting on the system. I remember a particular night when gunfire erupted just blocks from my home. I dialed 911, desperate for help, but the response was sluggish. By the time the police did arrive, the culprits were long gone, and the only thing left behind were echoes of violence and the frightened faces of our neighbors. Instead of reassurance, we were left with a sense of betrayal. Those sworn to protect us had failed. The ineptitude of the Heartland police is not just a series of mistakes. It's a systematic failure that allows the drug war to rage unchecked. Officers are more concerned with saving face than solving crimes. Corruption seeps into every corner of the precinct, and some in the community see it as a betrayal of trust that deepens the wounds in a town already scarred with violence. As the body count rises and the streets go more dangerous, the people of Heartland are left to wonder, who can we turn to when those in power let us down? Those are hard questions to ask and answer. But the criminals know that the past always catches up. It's inescapable. No matter how far they run, no matter how good they think they are at hiding, it will find you. The police think they are doing a fine job, but some of the victims of these crimes might disagree. Chief Hal Thompson of the Heartland Police Department insists that the police have everything under control. Chief, thank you for speaking with me.
Thank you for the opportunity, Sarah. If it's okay with you, I have to clarify something. There's been a lot of talk about the police being ineffective, and I think that's a mischaracterization. We are actively working to combat the crime in Heartland. Yes, we've made mistakes, and yes, we face challenges, but we're not just sitting idly by.
Chief, the community has expressed concerns about the rising crime rate and the perception that the police are absent when it matters most.
I understand the frustration, but it's important to remember that we're dealing with a complex situation. The drug war in Heartland, in this region, isn't just a police problem. It's a community problem. We can't do this alone. We need the public's help to gather information, to report crimes. It's a partnership.
A one-sided partnership. The chief knows that people are afraid to speak up for fear of retribution, and they are powerless to do anything about it. While Chief Thompson emphasizes the importance of collaboration, many residents feel abandoned and voiceless in the face of escalating violence. Pastor Isaac Mercer has been a voice of hope and guidance for the community during these trying times. He is in charge of the First National Baptist Fellowship of the New Light Church, a pillar of Heartland for more than 75 years. I asked him about the string of crimes and escalating drug war. Pastor, many of the community feel that the moral fabric of Heartland is fraying. Can you share your thoughts on what you see happening?
Absolutely. What we're witnessing is more than just a rise in crime. It's a symptom of a deeper malaise. Families are torn apart, and our youth are being led astray. Addiction and poverty are intertwined, creating a cycle that is hard to break. When justice fails, as it often does, people begin to feel helpless. And some believe that taking matters into their own hands is the only way to bring about change.
So, you're suggesting that the rise of street violence is a response to this breakdown?
Exactly. When people feel abandoned by those who are meant to protect them, they start to seek out their own solutions. It's a natural human instinct to want justice, especially when it feels out of reach. But I worry about where that leads us. While some may feel relief at the thought of communities policing themselves, it contributes to an environment of fear and chaos. We risk losing our sense of community in the process.
Do you believe there's hope for Heartland? Is there a path forward?
I have to believe there is. As a community, we need to come together, not just to fight the darkness, but to offer light. We need to empower our youth, support those struggling with addiction, and work with the police. Though I recognize the tension there. Justice should not be an act of revenge. It should be about healing and restoration. We need to restore faith in our institutions and in each other.
Pastor Mercer, you've been vocal about the struggles faced by our town.
In these dark times, some believe that when justice fails, it's up to us to take a stand.
The increase in drug-related violence has left our community divided. I've heard stories of families affected by addiction and crime, and it's heart-wrenching. Carla Simmons is a single mom raising her 9-year-old son Max on a small farm outside of town on Klinghaven Street. Perhaps you already know the story. Max loved dinosaurs and building things. Legos, puzzles, you name it. But Carla knew things weren't perfect. Her ex-husband had struggled with addiction, which is why she kept her distance. She wanted Max to have a stable, happy life. One summer evening, Carla got a call she'll never forget. Max was riding his bike home from a friend's house when he took a shortcut through an alley. There, he was caught in a crossfire of bullets as two men he didn't know fled the scene of a robbery and were chased by the store owner who opened fire, clipping Max in the head.
I was home making dinner, just making dinner. I thought he'd be back any minute, and then the police called and told me to come to the hospital right away.
Now, Max is in an outpatient care facility, and Carla prays he wakes up again. She says she walks by his empty room every morning, hearing his laughter in her memory, in the silence that fills her home. The men were caught, but the store owner was not found guilty. He was standing his ground, the jury said. Her life now feels like it's standing still, stuck on that night.
I think maybe I was naive to think that I could protect him from this world. But that's really what I wanted. Just one little piece of goodness untouched by all of this.
Joyce Cooper lived in a sleepy neighborhood at the end of Main Street by Price Park. If you've been there, you've seen her house. For years, she spent afternoons there with her son, Ben, as he grew up in that park. So when he started hanging out there after school, she didn't think anything of it. She said Ben was quiet, artistic, and had dreams of going to college, becoming a graphic designer, maybe even starting his own company one day. But at 16, he struggled with loneliness. He was searching for something. Connection, acceptance, something to fill a gap he couldn't quite name. That's when he met Lucas Calabrese. Lucas was older, 22, charming, and always seemed to have money, even when he didn't have a job. He took Ben under his wing, told him he'd help him get ahead. But what Ben didn't know was that Lucas was just another kid in the midst of a bigger battle for control of the street.
I remember the changes in him. Ben started staying out late, being secretive. The way he dressed changed, leather jacket, expensive sneakers. I thought it was just a typical teenage stuff, I thought he was just going through a phase. Then one night, he didn't come home.
Joyce got a call from the police. Ben had been caught in a warehouse with a large quantity of pills on him. To Joyce, it's a day she says she'll never understand. She still remembers that quiet boy, sketching in his room, talking about his big plans for the future.
Now he's gone for at least 10 years. He told me that he was working for that Lucas and that the drugs weren't his. Of course, Lucas denied it. I wonder every day if I could have done something different. Maybe if I paid closer attention, he'd still be here. I blame Lucas for what he did, but I blame myself too.
For Joyce, every day is a reminder of what's been taken from her. She sees Ben's friends growing up, graduating school, going to college, getting a job, and it's a constant reminder of what he could have had. Now she's left with questions that have no answers, and a life forever altered by someone else's choices. Detective Lisa Ortiz is a seasoned officer on the front lines of Heartland's escalating violence. Where Chief Thompson is just another member of the good old boy network, Ortiz is professional, focused. Nothing escapes her attention. She told me about some of the efforts her department is taking to help curb the wave of recent violence. Detective, the community is reeling from the increase in drug-related crimes and violence. What do you think has led to this surge?
It's a combination of factors, really. The collapse of our local industries has created a vacuum. Desperation has driven people into the arms of gangs and drugs. We're dealing with a multifaceted crisis here, and the police are struggling to keep up with the demand for safety and security. We need resources, support, and community cooperation.
Chief Thompson talked about community cooperation. But what about the dealers, Detective? It's understood that people stay quiet. Don't the dealers play some part in this too?
Yeah, the dealers are part of it, but sometimes addressing one problem means tolerating another. You take down the big suppliers, and someone smaller just takes their place. It's like trying to hold back a flood with sandbags.
So you're saying you're just letting them operate? Turning a blind eye?
We're being strategic, Sarah. trying to contain the chaos before it overflows.
Or are you just playing into their hands?
I don't think it's all that. We're doing everything we can.
Let's switch gears. Now there are whispers in the community about the escalation of a possible drug war between rival gangs. How do you feel about that? Could that be Rossi trying to extend territory? Eliminate his competition?
I'm not going to comment on the specifics of Mr. Rossi, but I will say that one of our working theories is that this violence stems from someone taking control of organized crime in the area.
Does this have anything to do with the missing DEA agent over in Central City?
I don't know the specifics of that case. It's being handled by authorities over in Central City, so I can't really comment. I do want to say to your listeners that we are doing everything we can with the resources we have.
But some of the members in the community feel that the police aren't doing enough to control the situation.
I get it. I really do. But there's a limit to what we can do, especially when we're stretched thin. Every officer here is committed to serving and protecting, but we need the community's trust and cooperation. When people stop calling us, when they take matters into their own hands like Mr. Brundage in the store robbery last year, it makes our job infinitely harder. We're fighting the same fight. They're our neighbors, after all, and we're doing our best to keep everyone safe.
Your best? What about the execution-style murder of Dylan O'Hara last week, Detective? Join us next time as the case intensifies.
You know what I think? I think it's them dang video games that's got everyone angry at one another and all that fighting. That's something you most see in your bigger cities, but not here. Well, used to be not here.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe in your favorite podcast app. And don't forget to like, follow, and share. Stay with us as we uncover the truth behind these violent crimes and what they reveal about the heart of Heartland. You won't want to miss it.